Hi, all. Today, we're talking about accepting ourselves as we are. The idea of recognizing where we are at any given moment and how we can work with that. It is a practice that encourages us to look within. It requires work and commitment to personal growth in order to accept who we are. But the real question is, how do we find who we really are? Today's guest is a well-established yoga teacher in the New York City area. Ahmed Soliman began his professional life as a wildlife biologist and environmental scientist. Serving the natural environment and helping to recover endangered species was his way of giving to a greater good. This is a concept that he carries daily into his yogic lifestyle, both in teaching and in practice, seeking to serve the community in a way that supports strength, healing, and sustainability. He also brings his science background to his students through yoga retreats in locations that provide the incomparable forces of nature as a backdrop to our yoga journeys. Let's get into our conversation with Ahmed. Welcome. How are you?
Thank you very much for having me.
I'm
doing
so
well.
I'm so honored to have you here today
I'm really
with
blessed
me.
to be here. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Awesome. Tell me a little bit about your story. I know you're from Egypt, but I want to hear a little bit about what you've been through, not all the details, like as much as you want to share before you found yoga and how you found yoga, how that changed your life.
Finding yoga, it's actually, the more I think of it and the more I look back, I find that there were a lot of elements that culminated in me finding my yoga practice and being attached to it. But the simplest answer that I always share with people and kind of where the start came from was for physical benefits. So I don't know how long ago was it now, maybe almost like 15 years ago. I was hit by a car. I was actually in Egypt. I was visiting home at the time and was crossing the street, got hit by a car there that completely broke my knee. And I had to have 3 surgeries just to repair my leg and be able to use my leg again. Throughout the process, my entire leg, all the muscles in my leg were atrophied. So I lost, basically all the power of my leg. I had to learn. I had to rebuild it from scratch. And as I continued to do so, and I had great surgeons, I had great physical therapists that I work with, and they all really helpful. But I got to a point where I was searching for a couple of things. One, I didn't feel like I reached my max recovery with all my dedication to my physical therapy and the personal work that I did. I was, going working out in the gym and things like that. And at the same time, I was looking for a practice that coming out of that injury that basically sidelined me for 3 years, I was looking for a practice that I can sustain even if I get injured again or as I grow older. So a lot of my friends recommended yoga, and there's a story to exactly how I find yoga, but I'll save that for later.
Okay.
But I went to a yoga class and I was hooked from day one. And because to me, it showed that it is that practice that I can sustain as my body changes, whether it's with age or with due to injuries, and I can still continue to be active, continue to be healthy, continue to live consciously with it. And that approach into physical benefits kind of brought me into the spiritual realm of yoga, and how that, and from there, a lot of other changes into bettering, I would not change it. I would not change that. Like, looking back at that path, I've been loving every step of it ever since, and I'm looking forward to continue it.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, I feel like there's so much to explore in the path of yoga, and it is, like you said, very like adjustable to how we come to the mat every time.
Yes.
Like
yes.
it's amazing.
So, and because of that, I mean, I've been to my classes before, and one of the concepts I work with is the as you are concept. And it came out of that. I came into yoga, I had a lot of limitations that I was working with. And it wasn't so much, and that's what I loved about that practice. It wasn't so much the destination that was our goal, but rather the journey of it. How do we, and focusing on that journey and not worrying so much. And in the practice of yoga, we say it by not attaching ourselves to the results, just kind of enjoying the process more. It's the same concept, enjoying the journey rather than focusing on the destination. And that in itself is just, it's very fulfilling, because it's almost like never ending. You continue to grow and you continue to learn. And, we talk, what we're talking about today is how we're going to practice courage and growth. And by focusing on the journey, that's a growth process. That's something that we continue to learn every day and witness ourselves and see how we change and how we can adjust to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that journey needs a lot of commitment as well, right? So
Oh, absolutely.
you have to be willing to put in the work.
Yes.
And I think that it's really important to accept who you are and be able to embrace it. But how do you come to the point that you know who you are, right? So I see it almost as like two very big paths, like figuring out who we are. And I don't know if we can ever figure it out completely, but get to a way that we're comfortable and we understand a big aspect of it. And then embrace that and come into the world and in any activity and anything we do as we are.
Okay. So, everyone's quest in life is to figure out our purpose in life. Who we are, why are we here, what are we doing? And these questions can be overwhelming. These questions we can sit there and think about it. We can never get an answer because, as you said, do we really figure out who we are? No, it is, again, I'm going to go back to that idea. It's a journey. It's a process, okay? And we have tools to work with that can help us explore that journey in ways that are meaningful and in ways that kind of ground us a bit more. In the tradition of yoga, we have these things called the 5 koshas, which is the 5 layers of the being. And the very first layer is that physical layer, the physical body, our flesh and bones. It's the same concept as thinking of it from the ground up, or like, one of the, if we look at in the world of activism, for example, the most successful activism comes from grassroots. It's from the ground up. It's not from the top down. So if we sit there and think that who we are and how I want to figure out who I am and myself, and kind of coming from the top down, it can be very overwhelming. But if we start from the ground up, what is the ground for us is the physical body. Physical body is tangible. I can touch myself. I can feel it. I know it's there. So if I start to explore that and get comfortable with it. Now, every physical body is different. My legs are longer. I have relatively shorter or longer legs than torso. You may be different. The other person may be, we're all different. We're not all the same. So learning our physical body, its capabilities, what we can do with it, and being comfortable in it as it is, that's kind of tying back to as we are, being comfortable with our body as it is and willing to work with it. I mean, I'm not saying be comfortable as like, all right, I'm done. I'm comfortable with my body. I'm just going to sit still here and do nothing. I mean, if you get to that point where you can sit still and do nothing, great. Hallelujah to you. But that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying but once you're comfortable with it, you're going to know where to go in a safe way, in a growth way, to whether you want to improve strength, whether you want to improve flexibility, whether you want to just find that calmness from the practice that you seek, whatever it may be that can lead you there. But the first step is embodiment. Get into your body, get comfortable with it so you can explore it.
So it's really about the physical space of who we are, right?
It's the start. The physical space is the first step.
Yeah.
Know the space. And I'm not talking physical space in the sense of what I'm occupying, like, the seat I'm in, this, I'm not saying, oh, this is my physical space, I want to know it. No, I'm talking in my seat, for example. I can take a minute, close my eyes, and then just start to picture how my feet are sitting on the ground. And how, because of where my feet are, how my shin bones are stacked, and how my legs are, my entire legs, and it all starts from the feet. So that is a practice of embodiment. So yes, it is physical space, but I'm not worried so much about the space that's surrounding me, rather than about knowing what my body is. Am I comfortable with my feet like this? Okay. And then I'm sitting here, if my feet are fully grounded, that helps me being nice and erect. But if my feet are slouched and I'm sitting like, automatically I'm going to slouch into back if my legs are just kind of rolled out. So these are like few things that we can, exercise together to be able to learn and understand our body and space. And then there is, going to a yoga class, there is a lot more opportunities where we can explore that in a safe way, because we do push the limits of the body, and we learn new edges, and we learn new limits, and we learn that, oh, I never thought I can do that. I was teaching a class this morning where, I took a quick survey at the beginning of class where, half the room like, oh no, we never been upside down. And by the end of practice, everyone had at least, even if it was just modified or the use of the wall, but everyone got up upside down in a handstand.
Awesome.
And it's just this idea, people, we always kind of like, oh no, I cannot do that. My body can't do that. But if we start to kind of move the body step by step and learning it and seeing, oh, I can do this. I can do side plank. Well, side plank is putting body weight onto the arm. Then why can't I do a handstand? Why can't I try it? And that's another example that we can, how the embodiment practice helps us explore more and grow more.
Yeah. So understanding is definitely a really big part of it, like almost like first step. I think another step that it sounds is really important is confidence, right? Finding the confidence in your body that you can try that or you can do that. And obviously with practice, you get, it gets more comfortable, and the more you try, it gets easier. But I think there's an element there of being confident, right? And it sounds like a way to practice embodiment is through being mindful, maybe through meditation, and of course the physical space of yoga. But how can we practice more confidence? Like, I think that's where courage plays into as well, right? We have to find that courage to get there. So how do we practice that?
So being comfortable with, actually, let me backtrack a little bit. This is a paraphrase of something that Iyengar said. It's not an exact quote because I don't remember the exact language, but this is, I believe I read it either Light on Life or one of his other books or writings. But in it, he says, in the practice of yoga, and again, I'm paraphrasing, do not compare yourself to others. We each have our own strength. Know your capabilities and continue to improve upon them. So this is something that I've read early on in my yoga journey, and it's something that I took to heart, okay? Because again, I came into yoga lacking a lot of flexibility. On top of it, I was injured, physically injured, so there was very little I can do. Showing up to a yoga class, that takes courage. Okay. And being in these shapes that we don't often, like, I always joke around in class, when, especially as people that live in New York, when do you see yourself in New York City have enough space to stand in Warrior Two, for example? Like stand, the shape of Warrior Two, your arms are spread wide, your legs are open. Then, where in New York do we find space to be able to stand that? Sometimes not even in our own homes, because our homes here are tiny. So being able to show up to a yoga class and coming into these shapes that we don't often do in a normal day, that takes courage. That takes commitment for us I am doing this because I want to understand my body. I want to know what the capabilities of my body are, and I want to improve upon those strengths. And some people can do deep forward folds. Some people can do deep back bends. Some people can invert like no other. Some people can do arm balances on one pinky. And some people can sit and split. Some people can do the best downward dog. Each person is different. Each person has their own favorite pose. So when we show up, when we exercise that courage of showing up and committing to ourselves, that helps us on the path of growth, and that gives us confidence too as well. When I show up and I see that there are like-minded people, and it's a safe, non-judgmental place, and everybody practices within that idea or that communal idea of this, we're here to explore ourselves, to understand ourselves. It's not a place of comparing ourselves to anyone. That helps us build that confidence and being able to do it and commit to it, to show up to it every day, and just being basically as we are, And the other thing that is beautiful kind of about practicing the locale that we have, being in Brooklyn and NYC, is the diversity that we have of people. Also the diversity of not just the body types, but the backgrounds and the cultures and the understanding of different things and what they bring into the class. So this actually encourages us and gives us confidence to be as we are. We don't really have to conform, and that's what I love about teaching here in New York City, is we don't have to conform to one style or another. We can just be ourselves and be safe and feel good about being ourselves. So that's, again, going back to the first step. It's all about embodied. It's all about being comfortable with being who you are, as you are. And then from there, you'll have the confidence, you have the courage to build the confidence. And from building the confidence, you can become grounded to know how to grow. Because once we're rooted, once we're grounded, then we can just get taller from there. Kind of like a tree.
Yeah. No, that's beautifully said. That I think that is something that really helped me find my confidence as well. I think I was liking a lot of it, but you're so right that when you're surrounded by such a diverse group of people that is there to support you and respect you, like no matter who you are and where you came from and what you do, like it's beautiful. It really is. It does let you unfold.
Yeah.
And I think through that you discover little bits of who you are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
That's great. So we talked about the embodiment, right? Understanding ourselves in the space. We talked about courage and confidence. Now let's talk about growth. So growing, what does growing really mean, right? So you understand who you are, and then is it about like trying to find different aspects of yourself, or you're trying to develop, change, because maybe there's certain things you accept, but you still want to change because you don't like. What does growth really mean?
First of all, acceptance is growth. Accepting ourselves as we are is growth. And I personally, I grew up Muslim. I identify as Muslim. The Islamic sort of the spiritual aspects and the spiritual values and ideas that I learned from Islam speak to me, and it's something that I'm very strongly rooted in. And one of the reasons it's I find it because of the commonalities it has with all other beliefs, and it's not just in Islam. And I'm actually, and the reason I introduced that is, despite being Muslim, I'm actually quoting the teaching. I'm quoting the Buddha in this and the teaching of Buddhism, but if you look at the story of Siddhartha, who is the Buddha, and he finally found enlightenment after all his trials. He tried everything. He fasted. He fasted to the point where he almost died. He became so sickly, he almost died. He abstained from many things. He traveled over. He tried everything to attain enlightenment, and nothing worked. And he just sought meditation and sought meditation. And finally, one day he was meditating underneath a tree, and he achieved enlightenment when he realized that the self is constantly changing, that nothing is still. Okay, so that's when he was able to become at peace with himself, because when he accepted that we're constantly changing. So you mentioned, is growth change? Yes. So first thing is accept that nothing is going to be still. I mean, and then back to my teaching in Islam, everything is temporary. Like the core of Islamic belief is that everything that we are and we have and we see in this life is temporary, including ourselves. All of us are gonna expire. We grow older, we expire. So there's that constant change. And if you look at the teaching in Christianity, it says the same. Teaching of Judaism, it says the same. And Vedic philosophies, I mean, all of it share this common belief. So yes, growth is change. Question is which direction of the change we want to go with. And that kind of takes us back to the quote that I shared from Iyengar, is knowing our strength and improve on them. Because when we know we're strong at something, we can take it into a positive direction. Anything can be taken in a positive direction or a negative direction. So when we know what we're good at, we can direct that. We can grow that in a positive direction that can serve us and serve our community and serve all the ones that around people around us or people that we love and care about, at least. So and that's one way we can look at growth. It's just
absolutely.
acceptance, just accepting who we are and knowing that it's also okay to change, that we're not permanent.
No, I think that every time I realize one new thing about myself, like either looking at my past or something recent that like I discover, it feels like shedding a layer. It feels like it's almost, it's like a new era, but like deeper on who I am. It's weird to explain, but yeah, it's like you're tapping deeper to who you are, but in a whole new like appearance, in a way where it's not actually appearance, but
you're absolutely
like
to give you an example that is a little bit more tangible, and it has to do with the practice of yoga. We go into a yoga class, we do vinyasa of some sorts, we do all these flows, and we move the body, we exercise the body, we test the limits of the body, and we do things that we perhaps thought we could not do. And through proper guidance, we end up doing it. And then after that, we go into a shavasana. Every yoga class, the very end of it ends in a shavasana, correct? Why do we do that in yoga? Why does in the practice of the yoga we end with shavasana? Because it is the time when the body, throughout the practice, throughout that hour-long or hour-and-a-half-long practice, we are gathering knowledge in our body, not just intellectual knowledge. Yes, we're gathering intellectual knowledge. Oh, look, I can feel my hamstring working in this, or I can feel my quad or my outer hip. So yes, that's intellectual knowledge, but also our body, like what in some of us yoga teachers term as, we gather physical knowledge, our body, which what we know in sort of more colloquial language as muscle memory, for example. Okay, that starts to develop. That is knowledge. So throughout the practice, we're gathering all this knowledge, physical knowledge, intellectual knowledge, all that, learning about ourselves. Then you get a chance to lay down and release your body and completely relax. And that's an opportunity for the mind and the body to assimilate that knowledge into intelligence. Body intelligence is what we call muscle memory. Intellectual or cognitive intelligence is, we learned, okay, now what am I going to do with that data, that knowledge? That's a lot of data that came into my mind. What am I going to do with it? Oh, like today I was able to do this. And then that feels good. Like when I stretched my quad, that really actually feels good in my hip. Like, okay, so maybe that issue that I had with my hip, I should stretch my quad a little bit more, I'm just giving some examples, but that is growth. That in itself is growth. So it's like you said earlier, it's shedding layer. And every time you go to practice, you shed that layer. You learn something new. Like, oh, like I can do this now because I was able to access it by doing that. Right. That's another layer you shed. So whether it's by the physical body, I just gave that yoga as an example because I'm a yoga teacher and that's what I do. But it's whether it's through the practice of the yoga or something. I mean, your profession has to do with engineering and sitting there and through practicing engineering year after year after year, you start to see that you are shedding layers on like problems that you thought it would never, you could understand are now become easier to. And again, I'm using them example because my brother and sister are engineers. So, but yeah, like wherever the thought may take you, wherever, it's about shedding layers and digging deeper and learning and gathering more knowledge and assimilating that into intelligence.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's beautifully said. So living in New York City can be great, like we just discussed, right?
Yes.
Meeting new people with different backgrounds. But it can also feel a little bit limited sometimes because of the lack of space and lack of nature, right? So I think you're somebody that really loves nature, right? Yeah. And I think before yoga, you did have some background on environmental.
I could have been titled an ecologist or a wildlife biologist. So depending, I did work in both. My background before I became a yoga teacher, my academic background, I studied ecology and evolutionary biology in college.
Awesome.
And then I worked for the state of California, and then I worked for the federal government after that as a combination of being an ecologist and a wildlife biologist. And so nature speaks a lot to me. And one of the things that everyone is like, what are you doing living in New York City?
Yeah.
So, New York City can definitely be limiting in that. One of the things that I advise is people to try to be outside as much as they can. It's a little bit hard in the winter. I mean, I do get what I call cabin fever in the winter because it's very hard to get outside when it's really cold. I'm not a winter person at all. Really do not like winters. So, but the beauty of New York City is also the seasonal change. And that's a natural process that is awe-inspiring every year. And I think that's why a lot of people like being in places like New York, like having the four seasons. I lived... as I mentioned, I kind of studied and lived in California for a long time before I lived in New York. And California, one of my favorite places on the face of the earth. But
where in California?
All over.
Wow.
I lived in Orange County, like from as far south as Orange County to as far north as Humboldt County, if anyone is familiar with California. And then as far as east as I got the opportunity to live in Yosemite National Park for quite a while too. So I literally spanned the entire state. California is home for me. So I was like, aside from Egypt, I call California as like my American home. So love that place, but we don't get the seasonal changes we get here. I mean, I didn't know that nature, as much as I studied nature, the amount of colors that can give us until I was here and I was able to witness that. So, there's a lot, and there's also a lot to be done. I mean, speaking of nature, like the Audubon Society is very active here. So if people didn't enjoy seeing colorful birds. That's a very active society that people can be involved with, especially if you're near Prospect Park or Central Park. They do nature walks, they do bird watching watch. There's a lot of also a lot of other nature clubs. There's a lot of that can be involved through both the Nature Conservancy or the conservancies of the park too as well. So there's a lot of opportunities, and come summertime, there are beaches. Our beaches are very beautiful here. So
Yeah.
my recommendation is go out as much as you can. Get
Yeah.
barefoot in grass, get barefoot on sand, feel the earth beneath you that grounds you. If you have the opportunity to travel, I always travel to the jungle or the desert.
To the jungle.
Jungles or the
Which
desert.
jungle?
I love equatorial jungles. So anything from like Costa Rica on to and then south. Like any equatorial jungle is my favorite place. And then I also love growing up in Egypt. Desert speaks a lot to me. Just being an absolutely barren. I mean, people think desert is lifeless. It'll blow your mind the amount of life you can see in the desert. Even like barren desert, nothing but sand dunes. It's really beautiful.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I really want to go to Egypt. Like I've been seeing a lot of like landscapes recently there, and there's like something different about it.
So I'm going. This is like an exploration / research trip, but I am taking a trip to Egypt soon.
Oh wow!
And I'll be sharing a lot of. I'll be happy to share. I'll
Yes,
be sharing a lot of pictures
please.
with you and a lot of places with you. So
Yeah.
because one of the reasons I'm going there is I'm exploring some desert oases and hopefully being able to do some yoga retreats there too as well.
Yeah.
Just because I've held retreats in Costa Rica, so there's that equatorial jungle that we talked about. So I want to contrast that with like a desert retreat, just being absolutely talking retreat in the Sahara, the Sahara of Northern Africa. So that's
Whoa.
it's
Wow, that would be wild.
Yeah, it'd be quite wild. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see.
Awesome.
Just wishful thinking right now. There's still a lot of work to do. I'm not promising anything, but I'm definitely I'm looking forward to do the work on that. Yeah. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. We talked a lot about exploring a lot of the personal growth yourself, right? Like going out there, figuring out yourself, and it might happen at any age for a lot of us. Like sometimes it happens during college, after college, sometimes it happens later on when you're really like trying to be awoke about who you are and try to like understand and accept yourself. What if that happened earlier on when kids are in school, right? And teachers kind of encourage meditation and encourage this kind of practices about courage and growth. I think there's been some efforts where they're trying to incorporate more meditation in schools. But do you think that would be like life-changing if that happened earlier on?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, just think of it, if we have the younger generation. I'm not talking, in one part of the world or another. It's just the entire younger generation of the world comes out with these practices already sort of engraved into them, and that, for example, in yoga we have what we call samskaras, which means grooves. So we establish these samskaras in the younger generation, and being able, when you are facing a difficult situation, just sit and seek meditation and do practices that help you make a more mindful decision rather than a reactionary decision, especially at the younger ages where they may not have the wisdom that we have when we get older to be able to as we get older, we develop wisdom that, inherently tells us don't react, just, take it in and then decide. Younger generations or younger people, younger kids may not be able to have the wisdom, the ability to do that. But if they have these practices from early on, from childhood on, and they're trained in doing that, just imagine the difference that's going to make in everything, in all the things that we don't like in the world today, when it comes to excessive violence, when it comes to deceit, when it comes to ego, when it comes to greed, and all these things that we are told are not good, yet are still prevalent. So imagine if we just change from as young as we can. And teaching meditation, the beauty of meditation is, again, it does not have to be specific to any religion or any culture. It is across every religion. I'm gonna say this, and you do not quote me for it, but I'm just gonna say it because I strongly believe in it, that literally every religion known to man has meditation as part of his practice. Okay? I know that for sure. I mean, we know that Buddhism is founded on the practice of meditation. Islam, and may not be known to this people, is also practiced by or founded by the practice of meditation. The Prophet of Islam, Muhammad, had the revelation of the Quran to him through meditation. He would meditate out in the desert. So it's not like, and that's how he was able to, find these revelations too as well. So, and the same thing if you look at Christianity, there's meditation practice in Christianity, there is meditation practice in Judaism, there's meditation practice in Vedism, there's meditation practice in Hinduism. In every kind of religion known to man, there is a meditation practice. So why, if we just kind of add that from the early get-go, allow younger generations to be able to sit and be okay with themselves, have that courage that I'm comfortable. Yes, my body's different than my friends. It's easy for us adults to say that, yeah, I'm proud of who I am. I like my body as it is. I don't care, or don't care what you look like. I don't care how I like how. But as kids can't easily do that. Imagine if we teach them to say that from early on, and the impact that will have on them as they grow.
That would be huge. I really hope that it becomes more of a norm and it's part of the curriculums. I mean, it would really help me when I was younger. So yeah.
So.
All right, as we are then, right?
Yes, as we are. Exactly. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I don't know about you, but I definitely feel more inspired and motivated to practice courage, to accept all parts of myself. A couple of ways to get you started are: step 1, meditation practices of physical embodiment. It is important to check in with our body and see how it feels, and add movement as necessary or eat healthier food. Step 2, surrounding ourselves with people with a different background that remind us to be humble with each other's uniqueness and allow us to unfold all aspects of ourselves. It is so easy to pay attention to others and start judging them. The difficult part is to focus inwards and start doing the work to understand. No one said that it's easy, but there's no other way to find alignment if we do not focus inwards. Also, as a reminder, let's be kind to each other. Each and every one of us are in our own journey and path to enlightenment. We need to remember that this journey looks different for everybody. What I find helps a lot is supporting and respecting each other. I'm starting to believe that the bigger gift that we can give to someone is support. Support to grow, to make mistakes, to be goofy, to wear a silly outfit, to have messy hair, to feel like they can express themselves with no fear or judgment. If you're already thinking this way, that's amazing, and I am so proud of you. There's so much bullying out there that young kids and adults have to face with every single day. The only way we can stop this is by showing them how to practice love and kindness, courage and growth for a more peaceful and bright tomorrow. for a tomorrow where they can stop living to compare themselves with their neighbors and trying to fit in, for a tomorrow that they unleash their reality and truth. To learn more about Namaste City and this podcast, please visit namastecitylife.com and feel free to drop us a message by visiting the Contact Us page. You can follow Namaste City on Instagram or Facebook. If you have not already done so, please go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Thanks for listening to No More Distractions by Namaste City, hosted by me, Sonia. Today's episode guest was Ahmed Soliman. You can connect with him through his Instagram page at Yogi Soli, Soli. Till next time.